to talk a lot in this interview about who you've been throughout your life, and before we dive into that, can you introduce the Mrs. Jenece Brown of 2024?
Well, I'm just an ordinary citizen that lives here in Edwardsville. I think back on my days of being young here and moving to Edwardsville at age 21, married. I taught school here for 32 years. All of it was in the Edwardsville Junior High School. And but today, I'm just active. I participate in a number of organizations and clubs as best as I can. I spend my time in the afternoon chasing a 6-year-old kindergartner, so I do get my exercise there. But I can't say I'm doing anything earth-shaking, or just an ordinary old lady trying to stay here in Edwardsville. That's all I can say.
You attended college in what was building up to be perhaps the most racially tense time period in American history. Can you tell me a little bit about what that was like for you?
Terrible. It was not pleasant, because you wondered why you never got the opportunities. You knew you were capable of doing it. You knew you were capable of being this or that, or leading an organization, leading a class, getting acknowledgement from your teachers, and we never got that. We were just someone sitting in the classroom. And I was a female, strongest in math and science, and that was totally geared to males. So to be a black female in an area that they didn't want females, let alone black ones, it was pretty lonesome. You could not count on some professors even helping you. You could count on, you were never included in a study group, and you knew that you either made it by reading a book and listening to the lecture, or you didn't get it.
What got you through all that? What kept you going?
I had one other friend, another girl in the class, and we kind of stuck together as two females, even though we never could study together, because she lived somewhere back up near Staunton or something. She would have to go home in the evening. But we did stick together. We did compare things. And the guys would have their little study group, and we two girls had our study group.
Okay, so after college, you worked as an Air Force cartographer at the Aeronautical Charts Mapping Defense Center in St. Louis.
Yes.
What got you into that?
Needing a job. And I finished SIU in December. So it's not the big hiring time like the springtime is. And I just started putting in applications, and since I was a math major, I got hired. Knew nothing about the job. And for 6 months, we never walked on the grounds down there, because it was a highly classified area, of which that's what they're rebuilding now as the National Geospatial Institute over here now. But we were kept off grounds, and we went to school 8 hours a day, and we had to pass classes that affected whether we got hired or didn't get hired. And we couldn't even, some finished it, but they hadn't gotten their security clearances. I got my security clearance in 6 months, so I was allowed to go down to the regular plant, which is at the corner of Arsenal and Broadway right now.
Can you describe kind of what you did there?
No. I made maps. Okay, and I made them for the Air Force. we made them almost completely from aerial photography that had been taken.
Can you describe the atmosphere of the town when you started teaching? It was about 6 years after the high school was integrated. What did that feel like for you?
It was the administration, I will give them credit, Joe Luco, Mr. Dodds, A. Gordon Dodds, that is, they made sure that we were watched a little closer, my husband and I, than most teachers, but that didn't bother us. We were doing our job, and I'm going to do my job. And most of the community was willing to give us a chance. There were a few that objected to having a black teacher, and they accommodated those parents and let them move on. And they let us move on, and eventually my husband and I became well-liked by everybody and well-requested by many, many people.
Over the course of your life, you've worked in a lot of citizens committees, boards, advisory positions involving like education and law enforcement supervision, I believe, and more. Why are these positions important to you?
I learned a lot about what other people go through. I was in my little world of junior high, middle school. Elementary had other problems, different problems than we had. The high school had different problems. Okay, so then I worked with the Fire and Police Commission here. And I found out that firefighters had a need and a different problem than, say, even the police. The firefighters would work 24 hours on and 48 hours off. So they didn't see their children every third day. Police officers, they go out the door, and both are such dangerous jobs that they don't know what's going to happen. So, and they're very stressful jobs. I learned to appreciate the stress that they were under. And then that helped educate me as to what other professions or other people may be feeling towards, or why they reacted a certain way.
Do you view, or did you view, or start to view people and life differently after moving past that like little world of junior high?
Oh my gracious, yes. When I retired, and I've been in 8th grade, teaching 8th grade for 32 years, and I realized when I retired, I am not dealing with a 13 or 14-year-old. Yes, I did appreciate that, okay, there's a different world out here than just dealing with kids all day long. Winston was a very independent person, and people could be hurling racial feelings and racism at him. He didn't care. He'd just smile at them and keep on walk. He'd walk right on past them. And pretty soon they realized they were the only noise in the room, and they'd shut up too.
Do you have that same characteristic? Could you kind of brush that off as well?
Sure. It was a job. I was there to do a job. If you let me do my job, I'll do it. If you're not going to let me do my job, then we would have to part company. They let us do our job, so we didn't have to part company. The hardest thing we had moving to Edwardsville was finding housing. Now, housing was not plentiful for anybody, least of all black people moving into town. There were no apartments hardly. You'd have to find a little apartment in a house here or a house there to rent, but there wasn't a whole lot to rent in Edwardsville. It was a lot different than it is now. But we found, I guess, we were forced into buying a house. And it was the best thing we ever did. Two 20-some-year-olds stand up, we have nowhere to live. Otherwise, we'd have to ride to Alton or down to Madison area or something to find somewhere to live. And so we found this little house to buy, and we stepped off and bought a house. And that was the best thing that ever happened to us. It made us work on our financial stability.
You once told a reporter that you were a liberated woman before anyone had ever heard of women's liberation. Why be openly liberated in a time where almost everything was telling you not to be throughout your college years and entering teaching?
I wasn't going to get anywhere if I sat there, and to me, this is my viewpoint, I wasn't going to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. I still had needs. I had wants, and I was going after them. And I had no problems doing that.
How did people sometimes react when you did things that were out of the norm?
I don't think I was that far out of the norm. I think there were many women who were right there with me and maybe a little quieter about it, but they were there. I had allies. I guess I was never raised to be the sweet little housewife. In the 1960s, most of the wives didn't work. They stayed home and took care of their kids, and I was out with a job. And now that I am a widow for 25 years, Winston's been gone 25 years, I realized it was the best thing I did was to go out and get a job. I had the energy to do it. I had the energy to do the job. I had the energy to run my house. Couldn't do that now. But financially, it has made all the difference. If I were a widow, depending only as a beneficiary of Winston's, of a dependent of just Winston, my check, my salary would be a lot different. But because I worked, same job he did, and therefore I paid into the retirement system and thing, I'm not as close to poverty as some of the other women who just depended upon their husband's Social Security.